So this video is all about sailing in the medium conditions where it's not too light, it's not too heavy. This is Sandy sailing on White Rock Lake in Dallas, and he's very good at this. In these conditions, it's all about boat speed. In fact, Sandy is so fast in these conditions, he actually scares the fish out of the water. Look to the left. Managing these conditions is managing a lot of things that are going on. There's the wind, there's the waves, and there's boat handling, as Sandy shows now. One of the most important things to remember when sailing in these conditions is keeping the boat flat. When the wind pushes on the sail, you feel it when the boat heels over. You feel that on the back of your legs. And you gotta lean out, as Sandy's doing now, to keep the boat flat. It's really important, especially when you go into attack, which Sandy does right now. Another thing that's very important is boat handling. You've got to steer through the waves, keep the boat flat, keep it moving, and when you go into attack, come out of it quickly, as Sandy just did. That was a very good attack. In this next sequence, we have Sandy going with the wind on a reach. You'll see the boat's nicely balanced, and he's using his steering to try to catch little waves. Butterflies are designed to be sailed on lakes with small waves, so the people that catch waves the easiest and the longest are the ones that tend to do best when sailing downwind. Now we see Sandy sailing in the opposite direction. Because in this day the waves are not at right angles to the wind, going in this direction the waves are not as easy to catch, so we see less tiller movement. Instead he's got his weight back, so that lifts the bow, and he's moving nicely. Now we see Sandy sailing in a run. I particularly like the way he set the boat up. He's heeling it to windward, towards him. And the reason for that is he wants to get the center of the effort of the sail, which is the part that's being pushed, over the center of the resistance, which is the hull. So heeling the wind to windward neutralizes the helm, which makes you go a little faster. Here's another look at this. Watch how little Sandy moves his tiller. He only makes very minor adjustments because the boat is almost perfectly balanced. There's a lot to be learned by watching how Sandy sails downwind. Here's another look from the side. His weight's well forward, and even though you can see different changes in the wind pattern from behind, it's very little movement. The boat is beautifully balanced and very fast. In this next clip we see Sandy sailing downwind and then jibing. Watch his hand that holds the tiller. He grabs the gunwale. This is not just to change sides, it's also for stability, because sometimes jibing can be pretty wild. Watch again. He bears off, grabs, and moves. Then when everything's under control, he switches hands. That's exactly how you do it. Jibing several times in a row and practicing this kind of maneuver is a great way to improve your boat handling. So we switched places and I decided to take Sandy's boat for a spin. My style is a little different because I like to get my body down so my head's even with the deck, so I can look sideways along the deck. The reason why I do this is it allows me to compare the position of the deck with the position of the water and the shore, and that's another way to keep the boat really flat. I'll look forward to the waves and look sideways to make sure the boat is flat. When looking forward, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the boat over or through the waves as easily as possible. Buterfly is very flat, and if you don't do it exactly right, you can actually get water over the bow, which is very slow. So what I try to do is I try to move my weight back and forward a little bit to help to kind of lift the bow over the wave, or use the steering to kind of punch the boat through the waves. It's a lot of work, but being in shape pays dividends. Here I am sailing towards the breeze that you can see better now because of the reflections of the sun. This particular day was quite gusty, and the change in the velocity of the wind and pressure of the sail was very noticeable. A good way to tell if you're sailing the boat correctly is if the angle of the boat is the same in the lulls or the pressure. And it's sometimes really hard, but if you can do that, then you'll have an obvious advantage. Every time the boat heels over in pressure, it spills wind. The trick is to use your weight and steering if necessary. That was a slight mistake right there. Then you go a lot faster. So now I'm setting up for the reach as though I've rounded the windward mark. And that involves letting off the controls if needed, pulling up the centerboard, letting up the main, and hanging on. The key to sailing at a reach is keep the boat flat and keep your weight back. I'm now going to jibe. Now I have an unusual way of jibing in that I come out facing forward instead of backwards. I do that by switching hands behind my back. We'll look at that again in a minute. Now I'm going to reach, and I'm going to use one of the best parts of the Buterfly design, and that's the fact that it's very round and it slides around very nicely on top of a wave. In most boats, if you were to carve back and forth trying to just get little rides on little waves, the boat would stop. But with a Buterfly, it just loves this kind of stuff. It turns very easily and it pays very handsomely. Every time I'm bearing off, I'm trying to pick up speed on the wave. Plus, as I bear off, if you have a look, the end of the boom goes to windward. And that is a completely legal pump that gives you a little bit of extra pressure on the wave, which allows you to catch waves that normally would not be able to catch. Okay, I'm setting up for another jibe. Watch my left hand. I grab the gunnel, I bear off, I grab the tiller, and I'm facing forward. If you switch hands after the jibe, you're facing backwards. You're facing the wrong way, and in a breeze, there's a very good chance you'll tip. There's a laser that passes in front. He's hitting way too far back, he's hitting too much, and the boat is out of balance. The way you sail any boat downwind on a reach in these conditions, you have to keep the boat flat. If you're not flat, you can't steer properly. And if you can't steer properly, you can't go for those other waves. In this side view, you can see that I'm at the back of the cockpit, but not too far back. And the number one thing is, even in the puffs, even when there's pressure, you've got to keep the boat flat. You'll see here that we've got a couple of gusts that are coming through. And you've got to do absolutely everything you can, like right there. Keep the boat flat. Another one coming up right there. Okay, now I've set up for a run. Centerboard's up, I'm letting off the controls as needed. I weights forward. The Buterfly is actually quite tippy in these conditions. It's actually very fast when it's unstable. So if you tip, you can say, yeah, but I was going so fast. I'm going to set up for jibe. This time I'm going to switch ends after jibing because the boat's quite stable. Switching hands behind is really important going from reach to reach if it's windy. That's a very common area for people to tip. And now I'm just going to look for little waves to catch. Try to keep the boat heel to windward to neutralize the helm. And of course, try to relax a little bit. This is one of the few times in racing when you can take a bit of a breather and relax, because you know at the bottom of each run, you're going to have to go back upwind again. So it's a good time to pace yourself.